Well, this committee is constantly focused on all of the threats that the Homeland faces on a daily basis, and clearly the three of you have outlined significant threats posed by UAS. But my question for you, Mr. Wiegmann, is how would the FBI assess the potential threat from UAS along the threat spectrum? Is this low, is this medium, or is this high, and why?
I think what I would say, and as the FBI director has testified before, this is a very significant threat. Given the easy ability to buy a drone commercially, it's easy to get, they're very easy to use, and not that difficult to weaponize for the as we've talked about, and that's what we're seeing some of already. So the FBI director predicted a few years ago that we would see a drone attack on a mass gathering. Happily, we haven't seen one yet, but I think it's a matter of time until we do see that type of misuse of drones for an attack in the United States.
Thank you. Ms. Vinograd, in your testimony, you discussed the potential use of UAS as both weapons as well as interference tools that could target airports as well as other types of critical infrastructure here in the country. I'd like you to explain for the committee more specifically what authorities does DHS currently lack to counter this threat, and what should this committee focus on as we draft legislation to reauthorize the current legislation?
Senator Peters, thank you. As my colleague just noted, the threat posed by the malicious use of drones represents a significant and increasing risk to the homeland and the American people. Currently, under the Preventing Emerging Threats Act of 2018, we are authorized to engage in protective measures against credible threats posed by UAS to the safety and security of certain DHS protective missions. That includes, for example, the protection of government personnel, president, vice president, federal facilities, sensitive assets in the maritime sector and elsewhere, as well as mass gatherings like SEERs and NSSEs in addition. What we have witnessed over the last 4 years as we have judiciously and responsibly implemented our existing authorities is that there are significant gaps in our ability to protect the homeland from drones. We have seen an increasing number of malicious drone incidents in and around airports. We have witnessed 2,000 sightings of drones in and around airports since 2021. Since 2021, aircrafts have had to engage in 64 evasive actions. That includes 4 commercial carriers doing so. There have been 30, on average, 30 airport disruptions each year. And in these scenarios, seconds matter. What we are seeking for the Transportation Security Agency, or TSA, is the ability, based upon this escalating threat environment, to engage in the proactive and persistent protection of the transportation sector, to include airports. This will literally, sir, help avert tragedy. Tragedy both as it pertains to the potential loss of human life and economic impact. When airports have to shut down, that costs millions of dollars. So this will help avert tragedy. Second, we are seeking authority for state, local, tribal, and territorial partners, as well as critical infrastructure owners and operators, to be authorized to engage in the detection of UAS. Those authorities would be implemented under the supervision and oversight of federal departments and agencies. We are also seeking the ability for a time-limited, a 6-year pilot program for state, local, tribal, and territorial partners to engage in mitigation of CUAS. As it pertains to state, local, tribal, and territorial partners and critical infrastructure owners and operators, as the committee knows, DHS relies on partners all around the country to help protect the homeland. We can't be everywhere. What we know is that the threat posed by UAS is widespread across the country, and it is critical that our partners have the authority to help protect the homeland, in addition to TSA getting the authority to critically protect the transportation sector.
Thank you. Well, certainly we know that state and local enforcement agencies need additional authorities. Certainly they're going to be kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to protecting our country from these threats and in working closely with federal government agencies. However, there have been concerns that have been raised by folks that such an expansion creates some significant challenges in terms of training and preparedness. So, Mr. Wiegand, I want to ask this question. The administration's proposal would establish a pilot program to test out these expanded authorities to state and local law enforcement. However, these entities need to have proper training, including how to protect individual rights to privacy, as well as effectively executing this pilot program. How would the Department of Justice ensure that these entities have the necessary training to properly execute these authorities?
Thanks for that question, Senator. Yes, so training is a big part of it. As you recognize, we need to ensure that if state and locals are going to do this, they know how to do it, and they need to be operating under the right rules. So one of the elements of our bill is to establish a training center that the FBI would operate in conjunction with DHS. All of the state and local, first of all, it would only be under the pilot up to 12 entities per year, but we would work with each of those entities that are designated to participate in the pilot program, do the training. They would have to learn what equipment could be used, learn how to operate it, learn what the rules are, because they would have to follow the same federal rules in terms of any data they collect, how it can be retained, disseminated, and used, when they can engage in mitigation activity, what the rules of engagement are. All of those are things they would have to be trained on and then certified. And then even after that point, when they are doing their risk-based assessments as to which facilities or events they're going to protect, that's all subject to federal oversight as well. So this is not the kind of thing where we just hand it off to the states and let them take over. It's something that we, the federal authorities, would continue to be actively involved in, both in training and making sure they're using the authorities appropriately.
Ms. Vinograd, how will providing additional authorities to state and local enforcement better prepare the Department of Homeland Security to protect, let's focus on mass gatherings, such as national security special events and special event assessment rating events?
Senator, as I mentioned, DHS cannot be everywhere. We rely in other contexts on state, local, tribal, and territorial partners to help us protect and to advance a variety of DHS missions. If SLTT partners are granted this authority, they can help prevent catastrophic attacks against mass gatherings of a variety of size and in a variety of venues. As my colleague, Mr. Wiegand, just mentioned, these authorities would be implemented under strict supervision and oversight of the federal government, including ensuring that these individuals authorized to conduct these operations are operating under comparable federal safeguards as they pertain to privacy and civil rights and civil liberties. As I mentioned in the context of TSA and airports, when we're witnessing a drone threat, seconds matter. Currently, SLTT authorities that are on the ground can't detect proactively drones, nor can they mitigate them. Those seconds that I mentioned, Senator, really matter, and the inability of our SLTT partners in their jurisdictions to respond could cost lives if our partners are not granted these authorities.
Thank you.